On a June evening in 1947, 3 shots from a carbine rifle killed Benjamin Bugsy Siegel, the gangster who turned sleepy Las Vegas into a gambling mecca. Everyone knew the mob killed him. The same night in Las Vegas, Siegel's former partner, Moe Sedway, strode into Bugsy's casino. Moe's wife, Beatrice, stood by his side.
Moe walked up to the microphone within 5 minutes after it happened and said, taking over the Flamingo, Benjamin Siegel is dead.
Siegel's murder made a perverse star of the woman who was Bugsy's baby, Virginia Hill. She added a border of black lace and an air of seduction to the violent picture of organized crime. Like the men around her, she too would draw the attention of American justice. Even Congress would eventually demand to know where she got her power and her money.
Like a lot of girls, that they've given me things and bought me everything I want. Then when I was with Ben, he paid for everything.
By Ben, you mean Ben Siegel?
Yes. And he gave me some money, too, and bought me a house in Florida.
Virginia's rise was typical of women who get involved with the mob. A small-town tramp from Georgia, she fled to the bright lights of Chicago's 1933 World's Fair. Working sometimes as a dancer, sometimes as a hooker, the voluptuous teenager soon fell in with the mafia. Then Virginia met an accountant for crime boss Al Capone named Joe Epstein. He taught her manners and style. She took Joe's advice, but she did not respond to his advances.
I know that Joe Epstein loved Virginia Hill. He told me that he loved Virginia Hill. And he had a very, very obsession with Virginia Hill as her mentor. And he felt that if it wasn't for him, Virginia Hill would never have been amounted to anything. She would have been a lowly prostitute from the South.
The gangster's lavish lifestyle and brutal power seemed glamorous to a poor Southern girl. Like Virginia, young Beatrice Sedway also left a small town to become a nightclub dancer and a mob lady.
Whoever was a sweetheart or a mistress or anything was just kept in the best ways. They had everything they wanted. If they'd have been millionaires, they couldn't have been better treated.
Being kept wasn't enough for Virginia Hill. She wanted some of the power from the men who ran the mob. She had all the traits of a mob lady. She was attractive, she was smart, and she knew how to keep her mouth shut. The Chicago mob soon had Virginia doing its work, carrying stolen goods, laundering money at racetracks, working for its Mexican drug racket. By the mid-1930s, the FBI had opened a file on Virginia, a suspected racketeer. She was fast becoming the most powerful woman in American organized crime. In New York City, she crossed paths with the movie star, handsome and monstrously brutal Benjamin Bugsy Siegel.
They called him Baby Blue Eyes, they called him Bedroom Eyes. Every woman that met him just went crazy about him. But they were all like afraid of him.
It was in Los Angeles that Bugsy and Virginia's affair became a legend. L.A. was a mob boomtown. The Chicago mob was closing in on the motion picture unions. New York sent Bugsy Siegel out west to tie up the gambling operations. Virginia was also in L.A. for the Chicago outfit, living in the Beverly Hills Hotel or renting homes such as this. She worked the Hollywood party circuit, recruiting gamblers. It was at one of those parties that Virginia and Bugsy looked at each other and found what they wanted.
Lust, I would call it. Lust and obsession with one another.
Once L.A. was in his pocket, Bugsy set his sights on Las Vegas. He envisioned big-time gambling and entertainment where others saw only desert scrub. Siegel took Virginia, fellow mobster Moe Sedway, and Moe's wife Beatrice along for field trips.
And there was only one road going out to Las Vegas, and with 2 tire tracks through the sand in the dirt, leaving L.A. And we went into Vegas, and I thought, gee, what do they want with a place like that?
Using mob funds from New York, Siegel took charge of building a monument to greed, the Flamingo, a casino named for the beautiful long legs of Bugsy's baby, Virginia Hill. But nothing went smoothly. Construction costs doubled as Siegel was accused of skimming from the mob to pay his gambling debts. Even as the casino finally opened, his relationship with Virginia was turning more violent, with fights carried out in public and settled in private.
Wherever they stayed in his room, he had a suite there. Everything was broken. Lamps, ashtrays, it didn't make anything different. And the help would stand out in the corridor, me too sometimes, and listen to him. And then after they'd have this big fight, then they'd make love like you wouldn't believe.
Siegel had made too many enemies in his violent career, and they sent a warning to Virginia: get away from Siegel. Virginia announced she was going to Paris and left Siegel on his own. On the night of June 20th, 1947, Siegel sat reading the paper on the couch in Virginia's rented house. That's where he was hit.
I often wonder where she was when she first heard the news. Was she in a nightclub? Was she in her bedroom in a hotel? Or did she hear it over the radio? Or how did she hear it, you know?
After the murder, Virginia attempted suicide 4 times with a combination of sleeping pills and booze. She kept working for the Chicago outfit, but kept a low profile. In 1950, in Sun Valley, Virginia pursued and married an Austrian ski instructor named Hans Hauser. But if she had dreams of finally settling down, American justice had other plans for Virginia. In 1951, Senator Estes Kefauver of Tennessee launched a crusade against organized crime. Virginia was a star witness. Grilled by the Kefauver Committee about her association with mobsters like Frank Costello and Meyer Lansky.
Did you ever get any money from Costello?
No.
And did you ever get any money from Meyer Lansky?
I never got money from any of those fellas.
None of those
None
fellas?
of those fellas. None of these that I've been reading about, or none that I knew. They never gave me anything.
None of the Fichettes?
No. I
did?
don't even speak to the... I mean, I met that Charlie once or twice. I don't even talk to him.
You don't like him?
No.
Virginia left the hearing convinced that she had bamboozled the senators, and the committee hadn't laid a finger on her. She was wrong. American justice wanted to catch up with Virginia Hill, just as it had with big mobsters like Al Capone, through the IRS. Like many organized crime figures, Hill did not report her illicit income. By this time, Hill was trying to live a quiet life in Spokane, Washington, with her husband and 2-year-old son. The family was under constant FBI surveillance. Then immigration officials pressured her Austrian husband to leave the country, along with their child. And as Virginia was trying to board a plane to meet them, she was told there was a lien on her house. It would be auctioned off to pay back taxes the government said she owed, $161,000. Fearing prosecution, she fled the United States and joined her family in Switzerland. The feds charged her with tax evasion and threatened to arrest her if she tried to re-enter the U.S. The Treasury Department even issued a wanted poster. Stuck in Switzerland, Hill was no longer of any use to the mob. When she turned to them for help, they ignored her. She began drinking heavily. Her marriage fell apart. Then, one day, she disappeared. On March 24th, 1966, her body was found near a quiet brook in Austria. The coroner said it was suicide, most likely from a drug overdose. Others contend the Mafia poisoned Hill, fearing she would reveal their secrets. In either case, the best-known mob lady ever died a sorry death on a deserted mountainside. Since the mob has always been run by and for men, the power of a mob lady is defined by the men around her. By that definition, Virginia Hill succeeded more than most. And yet, after the giddy, flamboyant life she led with the mob, she was abandoned, left powerless and vulnerable. But that glamorous facade can be alluring. In the 1940s, a Jewish girl on the Lower East Side of Manhattan grew up wanting nothing more than to be just like Virginia Hill. The mink coats, the casinos, the powerful men with their secret world of violence and intrigue. Arlene Weiss Brickman got her wish,
But in becoming a mob lady, she lost everything.
As the leading mob lady witness before the Kefauver Commission in 1951, Virginia Hill was living proof that a certain kind of woman could wield influence within the mafia. Her performance made a powerful impression on a New York City teenager named Arlene Weiss.
My role model was Virginia Hill. The first day that I ever saw Virginia Hill on television, I imagined myself to be Virginia Hill. And what I did was copy myself after her.
Arlene would become a mob lady herself and then use the power of American justice to turn against the mob. Even as a child growing up on the Lower East Side of Manhattan, Arlene was no stranger to the world of gangsters. Her maternal grandmother, Ida Bloom, ran a funeral parlor and was a mob lady in her own right. Her place of business was a hangout for Jewish mobsters, many of whom were establishing ties to the traditional Sicilian mafia.
She had an undertaking parlor upstairs, and she had the bookmaking concession downstairs, and what they would do is pay her by the week for letting them have the business. They would put the money in the caskets downstairs, and she would take money out of the caskets, like a little pin money.
Naturally, Grandmother Ida was a big fan of the mafia.
She loved them because they were dangerous. And not only were they dangerous, but she made a lot of money with them. So she loved them even better.
Arlene's father, a Rolls-Royce salesman named Irving Weiss, did favors for the mob whenever he could, and even owned a Miami Beach bar with a high-ranking member of the Italian mafia named Joe Adonis, a man renowned, among other things, for his own affair with Virginia Hill. Irving Weiss would bet on horses with his mob friends, and while he told his daughter he didn't want her getting mixed up with them, he did nothing to prevent it.
I always found myself at the racetrack with my father. I always found myself at the fights with my father. In other words, I was always with my father with all these different men, even though he never wanted me to be around them.
But the men wanted to be around Arlene. They began giving her gifts and money in return for sexual favors. At the age of 14, she met and became involved with a soldier in New York's banana crime family named Tony Mira.
For Tony, I would do anything. I didn't even give a shit if I got money, I didn't get money.
But over time, Arlene discovered that the New York wise guys made lousy lovers.
I have been around a lot of mob guys, and they are the worst lovers in the world. They don't care if they satisfy you, you have an orgasm or whatever. They're mainly concerned, let's do it, get it over with, and while you're in bed, they're telling you about, let's see now, what we're going to play with a football team for Saturday or Sunday, what number am I going to play for the day, who am I going to kill, how am I going to kill them.
At 17, Arlene got involved with a friend of her father's, a middle-aged mobster named Natey Nelson. The mob was unhappy with Natey because he talked too much. One day in the fall of 1951, Arlene stopped by Natey's apartment to get some shopping money.
When I got there, I saw another friend of my father's coming out of his apartment who was involved with the Italian mob, the Genovese family. And his name was Jimmy Doyle. And there he was coming out of the apartment and put his hat up to his head, carrying his coat. I'll never forget that day. And there inside, I discovered Natey on the floor. It was a horror to see. He was dead. And I figured, well, I was scared shit, pardon my language. And I figured I wasn't going to be the one to report this and get involved in it.
But Jimmy Doyle used the situation to intimidate Arlene and force her to have sex with him.
What I was doing is keeping myself alive, hoping and praying that he wasn't going to kill me for keeping his secret.
A shocking turn of events for a young mob lady who had thus far succeeded in using sex to manipulate her wise guy boyfriends. Arlene was scared enough to make her first, but not final, exit from the mob.